Hi, good evening. Let us start the 5th May 2015 discussion today. Now, the beautiful article which I came across is about education. And this article is very useful for essay writing, and also it is useful with regard to your ethics paper. Especially if you see education, there are two ways I can divide that. One is the education for commercial purposes and education about self. So what is meant by education for employability, education for living, and education of life? These are the two important things always I used to stress on. Now the commercial education system, how it is running is this. Everywhere comparability, marketability of education and increasing. Now the system of regular education, it aims to create a knowledge that is very fragmented, which cannot see a holistic understanding of the knowledge. In this context, the person fails to understand what is his self is. The competitive examinations and comparability across the students will ultimately leading to disharmony with regard to his self. Now in this context, let us see. The commercial education is stressing on comparability and marketability, and to bring in this marketability, we are increasing the competition, and it means whatever we are doing and whatever we are studying, at the end of the day it comes to scores and grades. And next is your livability in the future depends upon the certifications you have. It means we study for the degrees, not for the sake of the knowledge per se. We study not out of interest but out of compulsion. So it means entire education and education system is based on economic system. So how productive you are for yourself and also for the nation. On the other hand, the author talks about this. An education system shall lead to the realization of authentic self. This authentic self has three important characters according to him. One is autonomy, next is integrity and harmony. What is meant by autonomy? Your ability or your mind capability to make the choices for your personal and public self. It means that you shall have a robust understanding of the world and also the situation where you are placed in. That provides for an autonomy for you to make the choices. For example, if I want to vote for which party, I shall have the robust understanding of the politico-economic system and how it is going to benefit me, my society, my living and my people. So from that I will be able to make a decision. It means that if I am a sociologist, I see the knowledge from a fragmented perspective of the sociology. So in this perspective, by autonomy or my understanding of the world is very parochial. And the second thing is integrity. It involves a coherence of results of one's intellectual deliberations. You think. So when you think that, you have something called your intellectuality brings in some understanding, or it makes you a value system into your mind. When this value system is made, you are supposed to convert these value systems into actions. So it means that your ability to think and ability to understand your situation and make a choice is as autonomy. And from that thinking, developing an ability to deliberate intellectually based on reason, converting that into actions, it is nothing but integrity. So harmony means your actions and your emotional state, they shall always in alignment with each other. It means you are doing something, you shall be able to derive an outcome or a benefit of satisfaction out of it. A fulfillment of your actions. So your physical actions and mental actions have to be on the same path, which he call it as harmony. Now if you see the examinations are testing only a limited knowledge of an individual. For the sake of the examination, the world of knowledge has been fragmented. So because of this, an individual is unable to understand the knowledge as a whole, which if you see the Plato, Aristotle in those days, the knowledge is understood as a whole, not as fragmented as we see today. And next is as you go deep into the knowledge, every understanding of the knowledge becomes very subjective. But for the examinations, what is necessary is objectivity. It means examinations are meant for comparability. It means an objective criteria is necessary. So, examinations are not allowing an individual to dwell deep into the knowledge, where an element of subjectivity will be created. So, from this perspective, what he said finally is, we shall create an education system that is all about the self, which can make an individual to understand what is his self is. Now, the second article is about modernization of economy versus the traditional economy, or protection of the individuals living on the traditional industry. This argument is there everywhere in every sector in India. Now, for the example, if you see, on the handlooms part, one way we have the power looms which are coming up, and other way, huge population is still dependent upon the handlooms. If you can see, after the agriculture, the textile industry is the largest employer. And second thing is, the handlooms also represent tradition and our culture. And from very past, we have technicality, expertise and knowledge related to these handlooms. In good olden days, our handlooms were there everywhere in the world. Environmentally, they create low carbon footprint. So it means the technologies are environmental sustainable. On distinctiveness, the views which you can create on the handlooms cannot be created anywhere. But what is missing with regard to the traditional handlooms is, they have their market, but the governments are failing to look into their market. If you can see the success of Fab India, the success of Fab India can be attributed to better marketability of the goods produced on the handlooms. So it means the government, instead of doing away with these handlooms, it has to recognize that they have their distinctive market, and it has to provide for the marketability of the goods, and also provide for necessary infrastructure, power and other requirements. On the contrary argument of this, it is an outdated technology and its productivity or efficiency is very low. It means that it consumes more resources and output will be relatively less. So it means the cost of production will be high. As cost of production is high, the marketability of the good will be less. And competitiveness of this good in the international market will be low. And it cannot sustain the so-called as competition, and ultimately it makes us to lose in the game of globalization. So on the perspectives of competition, globalization, marketability, what we say is we have to shift towards the better efficient productions on massive scale. But on the case of employability, inclusive growth, providing for security nets, all these things we have to sustain these handlooms. So, particular Laila Thabzi, what she talks about is protection of the handlooms. In India, there is an act which is called Handloom Act 1985. It means that articles can be produced only on handlooms and sold. Now, there are rumors that the government might replace this particular law. So, the author talks about, let's preserve that particular article, though it is teethless, it is at least acting as a deterrent. So, to protect the lives of these people, we have to continue with this thing. And next is Food Security Act. Now, though it was enacted in 2013, still it is not on rails. The major reason is this. Now, the states has to implement this law. So, now the center has created certain preconditions with regard to the sharpening and shaping of the PDS system. What are the preconditions? The computerization of the beneficiary records and setting up of vigilance committees and displaying of some list of the beneficiaries, improving the storage facilities. All these are the preconditions which are being created with regard to the food security system. Many of these conditions are not yet fulfilled by many states. That's why it is still lagging. So you know that the Food Security Act is an important welfare legislation, and it demarcates the cooperation between the center and states. Now 67% of the people have to get benefited from this. And you know that India is a country with highest malnutrition and people living with hunger. So in these circumstances, the food security law as quickly as possible need to be implemented. And now coming to the editorials, understand that all these events will be covered to you in your previous class. But why these editorials are important? These 4 last lines makes them beautiful. Conclusion part of your answer. There can be no better conclusion than the editorials over here. For example, if you recollect, in the yesterday class I talked about this Daksha, which is providing for a data on how the rule of law is being implemented, how the cases are being disposed at the high court levels. It found that there are huge pending cases, and added to that lack of uniformity across the country. And in this case, improving the productivity is one of the important aspects in justice delivery in the country. The major reason for the failure of the justice delivery is lack of adequate funds. So in this context, what can be our conclusion? If the justice and rule of law have to be meaningful to the people, then the government has to make its resources or back its resources along with its promises. The beautiful way the statement is concluded. So try to make an opinion like this, so that's even your mind might be thinking the same, but your conversion that into sentences is the most difficult part. So I use this particular thing under-resourced judiciary in India, and for the conclusion's sake in my answer. And the second thing is with regard to land border agreement. So now the neighborhood policy of India, if you carefully observe, we want to maintain the good relationships with our neighborhood. In this cases, altering a particular agreement without informing it to the other party, it shows our big boss attitude or big brother attitude. And it is going to reflect not just with the country which we are dealing with, it also going to reflect in our neighborhood. It means that with regard to international practices and policies and with regard to international agreements, the parties have to stand beyond their politics, and they are supposed to provide for a bipartisan orientation, and India has to speak as one. So the government of India has to speak as it is speaking for all its people and all the states in the country. So that is what is the importance over here. And next is President Pranab Mukherjee is visiting Moscow, especially every May 9th, they conduct a victory parade remembering the victory of the Second World War. Now it is 70th year, so obviously the victory, this particular parade is expected to be grandiose. And why this particular thing is important is, all the Western countries are boycotting this parade because of the Russia's involvement in Ukraine, or with regard to the Crimea issue. But in spite of all this, Indian President is visiting that. It is to ascertain our strategic autonomy. And the third thing is, we want to send a strong point back home. In spite of our improving relations with Western Bloc or Western world, Russia is still our trusted friend and partner. So this is what we wanted to convey through this particular thing. So use your editorials at the end to frame an opinion on a particular issue or a particular point. That's going to be that's very valid and helpful point with regard to your exam concern. Thank you very much.